everyone. So today we are going to see how to aggregate data in pandas, and it is a very handy tool for quick data analysis. So for aggregating the data, we will definitely make use of the two most important functions. One is pandas.dataframe.aggregate and another is pandas.groupby function. So we will see the functionality of both these functions. So let's get started. So what dataFrame.aggregate function does is it aggregates using one or more operations that you can pass into the function's argument, and you can also specify the axis. So that aggregate function that you will pass in the argument will be performed over that specified axis. Let's take a look at the basic syntax of that function. So it basically looks like data frame. Okay, we are just making use of df. So df.aggregate, and in the brackets pass func equals to, you can pass any func. So I just specify for just illustration purpose, I just type as none. Axis, the default axis is set to 0. So if you don't specify any axis, it will default to 0. Then args, number of arguments, and in order to pass any keyword arguments, you can pass kwargs. Yeah, so this is what syntax look like. So let's just deep dive into the respective arguments. So what func argument does is, it is basically takes the value of a function. It is takes a function, string, list, or dict. So function to use for aggregating the data. If a function must either work when passed a data frame or when passed to a data frame.apply. So accepted combinations can be, you can either pass only the function, you can pass a string function name or list of functions, and or function name like np.sum or mean. You can pass multiple functions also. Another is axis. So it is default to 0. So it will apply that function you have passed to each column, or if you type 1, if you pass 1, so it will apply that particular function to each row. Another is args, so which is just gives the positional arguments to pass to function. And another is kwrgs, which is the keyword arguments to pass to a function. Now what this returns is basically a scalar, or it can even return a series or a data frame. So if it returns a scalar, so only when the series.ag is called with single function, and it will return a series when data frame df.agg is called with a single function, and it will return a data frame when data frame.agg is called with several functions. So basically the aggregation operations are always performed over an axis, either the index, which is default, or the column axis. This behavior is different from the numpy aggregation function, where the default is to compute the aggregation of the flattened array. Now let's look an example of it. So I just pass a data set in here, create a just random data set. So I just copy this code, and when I press shift to center, this is the random data set we have just created. Okay, wait, we have to first load the pandas library. Code. Now this would work. Okay, we even have to import numpy. Okay, now the data set is created. Now if we want to pass, suppose let's pass sum or the min function to the argument. So what we're going to do is type df.agg. As I mentioned earlier, that agg is just an alias for aggregate, and we have to pass more than one function. So we can pass sum, comma, we can even pass minimum. When I press shift plus enter, you can see the values. Oh, before that we can just look how our data set looks. So this is how our data set looks. On the third row, we have just passed the man values, as you can see. So after applying the aggregate function or the two values we would like to aggregate over. One is sum and minimum. So if we apply sum, so you can see 7 plus 4 plus 1, which is exactly 12. And for p, so this aggregated the values and combined it and just printed out the results. And another one was minimum. You can clearly see that if you add nan to any sort of numbers, the answer will still give you the number if you apply the aggregate function over it. So this was the function you applied for each column. Now, if you want to apply aggregate function per column, so you can do it by df.agg. You have to specify axis equals to a. Here you have to specify. I'm writing x equals to curly braces. You have to type a. And in this particular column, you want to apply, suppose, sum function. So we'll take sum, and also suppose I want to apply minimum also. So I'll apply minimum. I close the square bracket. It is already closed. And on the B column, I want to apply, suppose, minimum and maximum. So I'll go again, type square brackets, and in the values I'll type minimum, comma, then again I want to get the max value as well. So max. That is done. The bracket is also closed. Closing brackets itself is given here. Plus shift plus enter. And now you can see the three functions for respective columns. For A, we wanted the sum and the minimum. So sum and minimum is given. Max we have not specified. So for max value, it has given nan because we haven't asked for it. And then for the B column, we only asked for minimum and max. So the values are been given. And we didn't ask for sum, so it has written nan. So by default, the function we were using were taking axis as 0. That means the axis were on the rows. I mean, axis was on the columns. So in order to get according to the column wise, that means if you want to get according to the column wise, what you can do is like type df.agg. You can pass mean if you want to calculate mean. There are many aggregate functions that you can apply. Axis equals to, if you want to, you can even type 1 or you can type the column itself. So if I type column, I press shift plus enter, you can see the mean values. That means this operation has been performed column wise. Like if you go above, so if you see our data set, so it has added 1 plus 0 plus 2.0 plus 3.0, which is equals to 6, and divided by 3 because we're taking mean. So it's gave answer as 2. And similarly for second row, the value is 5, and for the third row, value is 8, and the average of all the nan is basically nan. So this is how you can even manipulate a function a bit. Now this was about the aggregate function, and another topic that we want to discuss is about the group by function, which is also majorly used for aggregating the columns. So you can see that Python is a great language for doing data analysis, primarily because of the fantastic ecosystem of the data-centric Python packages. Python is one of those packages and makes importing and analyzing data much easier. So pandas.groupby is used for grouping the data according to the categories and apply a function to the categories. It also helps to aggregate data efficiently. So it is just works similarly as aggregate function. So it is also used to split the data into groups based on some criteria. So in order to, if you want to group, like divide your entire data set into basic groups, so you can use this function by passing on the criterias. And pandas objects can be split on any of their axes. The abstract definition of grouping is to group. The abstract definition of grouping is to provide a mapping of labels to group names. That's what I can say. So again, if you want to see the syntax, so syntax basically look like data frame. If you have a data frame, so you have to apply dot group by function, and again it will take some arguments. It will take one argument is by, because on the column that you are going to apply, another argument is axis. Again, like the default is 0, again on which axis you have to perform the operations. Another is level. So this argument basically, like if the axis is a multi-index like hierarchical, so you can group by a particular level or levels. So we can see the example if you go into the standard. So we just demonstrate with an example. And another is as underscore index. So basically for the aggregated output, a return object with group labels as the index. So only relevant for the data input as index. False is like SQL style grouped output. So another example is sort, another argument. So it will sort group keys, and if you are having a group key, so you can add a group key to the index to identify pieces. So another, you can use squeeze, which reduce the dimensionality of the return type if possible. Otherwise, it will return the normal type. And what this function returns is the group by object. So let's see the example how it works. You will get the better idea how it is working. So for that, I have taken a dummy data set like nba.csv. So I'm going to perform on the real data set. Let me just read it and apply group by function. So now you can see I have read it in via the pd.read_csv. I have passed the path file and also df.head. So you can see this is how the data set looks like. Now we are going to apply a group by function on it. So suppose I want to apply group by function to group the data on, but let's say team value. So as you can see this team. So if I want to apply group by function, so I will just like, let's take an example, df.groupby. I'll pass it the column name, which is here is dm, and let's type like the first entries. In order to get the first entries and all the groups which is formed on this team, you can just type first. It will fetch you all the respective groups first value after forming all the respective groups. Okay, so here it is error what it says. Oh, I just passed df. I need to pass df.1. Now let's run it. Okay, so now you can see, so it has formed. Now as you can see, the Boston Celtics is there, and in the second entry again Boston Celtics. So it has taken all the Boston Celtics and it has grouped into one Boston Celtics, and the first result has been fetched by the group which is formed. So you can see different teams. So for Boston Celtics, it has taken Avery Bradley, as in our data set also the first record for Boston Celtics, Avery Bradley. So it has picked all, after forming the groups, it has fetched all the first respective records for each team, and also the values has been added. So you can see the name, number, position, age, height, weight, salary, and the group data. So this has been done on the team column. Now if you wish to see any one particular group in detail, so what you can do is just type gk.get_group, and in the details you can pass Boston Celtics. Press shift to centers. So this is the entire group of the Boston Celtics, only for the Boston Celtics. Now if you want to group by on more than one category, like for suppose I want the first group that to be formed with the team, and again the second category should I form this based on position, because the position are also being similar, like PG is for Avery Bradley and for Terry Rozier also that is PG. So I want to group on these both two columns. Now what I can do is just type gkk equals to df1 dot group by, and in the category I have to specify it, so I need to have square bracket because I'm specifying on more than one column, team comma, another is position. Again, in order to get the first values of respective categories, gkk first, shift plus enter. Now you can see based on respective groups first for the teams, and based on other groups it has formed the categories. So this is how multiple columns you can add, and if you want to group by with the help of more than one column, so you can do this, right? So yeah, that's all about the aggregate functions in pandas. There are many more functions which you can see in pandas documentation, but yeah, these